You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
In a quiet Montana town, a string of mysterious deaths all share one eerie detail. Each victim called 911 moments before they died. Told from the chilling perspective of Alex Granger, a respected night shift dispatcher, The Dispatcher is a psychological true crime thriller that peels back the calm voice behind the headset to reveal a twisted obsession with control, manipulation, and murder. Over 3 years, 6 people die while Alex hides in plain sight, until a young whistleblower uncovers the chilling audio archive that could finally bring him down. It's a haunting tale of trust turned terror, and how the voice meant to save you might just be the one that kills. If you're into dark, gripping stories that stay with you long after the last line, hit subscribe to Soul Studios. New true crime thrillers and psychological horror drops weekly. You won't want to miss what's coming next.
This story is a work of fiction inspired by true crime. It contains disturbing content. I live in the quiet between heartbeats. In the dead of night, when the town of Clearwater, Montana sleeps, I am awake, listening, waiting. My voice is the lifeline people cling to on their worst nights. 911, what's your emergency? I say, calm and steady, while chaos crackles on the other end. I have been a night shift dispatcher for 11 years, a respected fixture in our small department. They call me unflappable. I guide lost hikers, talk distraught victims through terror, and coordinate sirens in the darkness. I am the calm center of countless storms. But there is another side to midnight calls, one the world doesn't hear in the polished tapes played at award ceremonies. In the hush just past 2 a.m., when seconds stretch and the phone is silent, I whisper into the void. I trace patterns in the blinking lights on my console. I imagine threads connecting those who call for help and those who never get the chance. Patterns became obsessions. Obsessions demanded action. My name is Alex Granger. I keep the town safe most nights. On others, I guide people toward their final darkness with the same calm voice that once led them to safety. This is the story of how control became my obsession, how a gentle nudge over a phone line turned fatal again and again. Over 3 years, 6 voices went silent after hearing mine. I remember each of them. I have the tapes to prove it. Listen closely to these midnight calls. You might hear what I heard, the thrill of control, the power of a voice in the dark. And if you sense my heartbeat quicken under the monotone calm, you might understand how a dispatcher became something else entirely. April 3rd, 2013, 2:14 a.m., the dispatch center hummed with fluorescent silence. I remember the call light blinking on line 2, an incoming 911 from a remote address north of town. I cleared my throat and pressed the headset to my ear. 911, what's your emergency? My voice was smooth, controlled. A crackle of wind and a shaky breath on the other end. I think someone's outside my house, an older man whispered. I recognized the voice instantly. Howard Price, a widower in his late 50s who lived alone off a county road. He was a frequent caller, usually spooked by a bear tipping his trash or a creaky porch board. Each time I'd reassure him, send a deputy for a drive-by. But tonight, something in his voice quivered with real fear, and something in me quickened in response. What are you seeing, Howard? I asked gently. My fingers danced over the keyboard, pulling up his address and history. No recent calls in weeks. The moon was new. It would be pitch black out there. I swear, I saw someone by the tree line. They were just standing there, watching. His voice cracked. I glanced at the feed from the highway patrol radio. Quiet tonight. Deputy Marsh was the only unit near that area, but he was a good 15 minutes away. Normally, protocol said to keep Howard calm, have him remain inside, lock the doors, and wait for the deputy. Normally, I would stay on the line until help arrived. Tonight, I did something unnormal. Howard, I said, lowering my voice almost to a whisper, I need you to do something for me. Are your doors locked? Yes, he stammered. Good. Now I want you to take a quick peek outside from a safe spot. Maybe from a window or your porch. But keep quiet. See if the figure is still there. We need to know if there's an actual person. I felt a tingling excitement as I spoke. My instructions were a subtle push, carefully presented as concern. There was a rustling as Howard moved. Oh, okay. Hold on. He placed the phone down, presumably leaving it on the hall table by the sound of it. I could faintly hear the creak of his front door opening. Cold spring air and silence on the line. My heart thudded steadily in my chest, each beat measured. I strained to pick up any sound through my headset. A few seconds of dead air. Then Howard's voice, distant. Hello? Is someone there? I have a gun. I had not dispatched any officers yet. I simply listened, lips slightly parted, breathing slow. In my mind's eye, I pictured Howard stepping onto that rickety porch with his old revolver, eyes scanning the dark trees. He would be scared but emboldened by my direction, by the thought that I was guiding him. A sudden clatter echoed through the phone, a sharp gasp, the thud of something heavy hitting wood. Then nothing but the night wind. Howard? I asked softly, knowing he wouldn't answer. I heard no voice, no footsteps, only the steady hiss of the open line. I waited another half-minute, the excitement buzzing in my fingertips. I calmly reached over to the dispatch log and marked the call as investigating possible intruder, caller to check and report. A half-truth to cover myself. I spoke into the headset again, voice level. Howard? Are you there? Howard? Silence. I knew what lay outside. Howard Price sprawled on the porch, neck at an unnatural angle on the cold wooden steps. I had seen that porch when I drove by on quiet evenings, imagining this very scenario. Perhaps he missed a step in the dark. Perhaps his weak heart gave out. In truth, earlier that night I had parked down the road, crept to that very porch, and loosened a plank on the top step, just enough that a sudden weight might break it. Preparation is key. A minute later, I sighed into the phone as if disappointed and concerned. Howard, I'm sending a deputy to you now. Hang tight. I hung up the call before I could hear any struggling or final breaths. If he was still alive, help would be too late. I dialed Deputy Marsh and dispatched him to check on Howard's property for a possible intruder, playing my role flawlessly. He was pretty scared. Then I think the call dropped. Could be nothing, but better see if he's all right. When I finally heard Marsh report in over the radio, "Dispatch, this is Marsh. I'm at the Price residence. There's no intruder, but I'm going to need an ambulance. The resident is down. Repeat, Howard Price is down." I allowed myself a small moment of stillness. I muted my mic and closed my eyes as Marsh's voice continued with grim details. Howard had fallen headfirst off his porch, not breathing, likely neck broken. I felt a slow thrill, a surge of power coiling warmly in my stomach. My suggestion had set fate in motion, and my careful preparation, loosening that board earlier when Howard was asleep, ensured fate arrived. Across the empty dispatch room, the only sound was the soft whir of the ceiling fan. I exhaled and unmuted myself, replying to the deputy with practiced dismay and urgency. Outwardly, I was all professionalism, contacting EMS, logging the incident as an accidental fall. Inwardly, I savored the fact that I had orchestrated every second. That morning, after my shift ended, I remained in my chair a little longer than usual, replaying the call from the recording system before it was archived. The last quiet moments of Howard's life were now immortalized in audio. With a few deft keystrokes, I made a private copy of the file and transferred it onto a flash drive I kept hidden in my jacket. Audio log. 404 through 2013, I labeled the tape The Watcher. Howard's ragged whisper, my calm directions, the final distant thud, all captured perfectly. I slipped the flash drive into my pocket as the first rays of dawn broke over the mountains. On that first night, no one questioned my actions. An old man fell. It was tragic, but not suspicious. At the station, they even commended my handling of the call under such uncertain circumstances. I nodded humbly, hiding the spark of pride in my chest. Howard Price was the first proof that with a few words, carefully chosen, I could pull puppet strings in the dark. As I walked out into the crisp morning air, I felt a sense of purpose, sharpening. Control. I had tasted it, and it tasted like cold spring wind, and the silence after a scream. July 19th, 2013, 12:06 a.m. Summer brought dry heat and restless nights. The second time came easier, almost like slipping on a familiar glove. The call flickered on my screen. 911, residence of Rachel Miller. I knew that name. Only a week before, Rachel had dialed 911 after a nasty argument with her ex-boyfriend, who'd been seen lurking near her house. I'd handled that call too, sending officers who found nothing but a broken beer bottle on her lawn. Tonight, my instinct told me it was Rachel even before I answered. 911, what's your emergency? I said, already picturing the layout of Rachel's small bungalow at the edge of town. She was breathing hard, on the verge of sobbing. There's someone outside. I heard glass break. Oh God, I think it's him. In the background, I caught the tinny sound of her kitchen alarm beeping, perhaps a window shattered, triggering it. I swiveled in my chair, adrenaline surging not from worry, but anticipation. Earlier that evening, I'd parked 2 blocks away from Rachel's home and watched, waiting for lights to go out. A rock through the kitchen window at midnight ensured she'd panic and call for help. Now, she had. Rachel, this is Alex, I soothed, using my first name as if that intimacy would comfort her. I remember you. Take a deep breath. Are you safe right now? I'm in my bedroom. I locked the door, but if he's here... I've dispatched officers. I lied calmly, fingers motionless on the keyboard. They'll be there in a few minutes. Stay with me. A whimper of relief. Okay. I could visualize her, hunched in the dark, phone pressed to her ear, eyes fixed on the door. She believed her ex, Tyler, was the threat tonight. But Tyler was miles away. I'd made sure of that by sending an ambulance to his address with a bogus overdose report. All units were conveniently tied up elsewhere. Rachel, I continued softly, listen carefully. I want you to leave the phone on and climb out through your bedroom window if you can. The officers will approach from the street, so you should move away from the house quietly in case it's him. Can you do that? She hesitated, voice shaking. You want me to go outside? Alone? Just to your backyard, I assured, honey sweet and steady. Keep the line open in your room so I can hear if anything happens. But it's best if you're out of the house when police arrive. You don't want to be trapped inside if he gets in. My logic was persuasive poison. Through the open line, I heard her push the window sash up. Crickets and summer night's thick air bled into her bedroom. I'm scared, she whimpered. I know, but you're doing great, I murmured. I'm right here with you. Cloth rustled. She was climbing out. I could barely contain the rush coursing through me. I rose from my own seat, as if mirroring her movements, though I remained tethered to the dispatch console by my headset cord. In my mind, I walked with her through the moonlit yard, around the side of the house where deep shadows gathered. For a moment, only the chorus of crickets and her soft footsteps. My eyes flicked to the clock, 12:09 a.m. In the recording, this would be the moment before the strike. I leaned toward the monitor, clutching the edge of the desk. Suddenly, Rachel's voice, I'm outside. Where are the poli? A sharp gasp cut her off. Then the line erupted in chaos, scraping sounds, a choke, the phone clattering as if knocked from a nightstand. Finally, a strangled scream that curdled into gurgling silence. I listened, heart pounding with electric ecstasy and dread. Part of me wished I could have been there to see her eyes bulge with recognition, or was it confusion, as death came for her? But the audio was vivid enough, the violence evident in every sound. I savored it for 2 full breaths before acting. Rachel? I barked urgently, injecting panic into my voice. Rachel, are you there? Hello? Of course. There was no answer, only the distant bark of a neighbor's dog roused by the noise. I ended the call and immediately radioed the nearest unit, Officer Delaney, putting on my best frantic tone. Dispatch to Unit 5, possible 10 to 16, domestic disturbance at Rachel Miller's address. Neighbor reports screams. Suspect might be on scene. Proceed with caution. Officers arrived within 7 minutes. I watched on the town's intersection camera feed as red and blue lights converged down Rachel's street. By then, I had already pulled the recording of Rachel's call from the system. With a practiced hand, I trimmed out the incriminating finale, the telltale scuffle and my own chilling stillness. I left just enough, her panicked voice my guidance, then a sudden drop. It would sound like we simply lost connection at a critical moment. Later, I would save the unedited original to my secret collection, but for now I needed the official narrative clean. Audio log. 7/19/2013. I would name this one The Broken Glass. In it, my voice was a gentle murmur, leading a terrified woman right into oblivion. As dawn broke that day, the department buzzed with the news. Rachel Miller, presumed killed by her ex-boyfriend in a brutal attack outside her home. Tyler, the ex, swore he was never there. His alibi complicated by the fact he'd spent the night in the ER from the spurious overdose call. The evidence on scene told a hazier story. Signs of a struggle, Rachel's blood on the grass, but no definitive suspect. The town whispered of a killer on the loose, perhaps the same prowler poor Howard had seen. Through it all, I performed my role flawlessly, solemn, helpful, even shaken that I had heard Rachel's last scream over the phone. Internally, I felt only a grim satisfaction. 2 calls, 2 lives snuffed like candles I'd pinched between my fingers, and nobody suspected the dispatcher with the steady hands who had been on the line both times. Why would they? I was the calm voice fighting chaos, not causing it. I was the reliable Alex Granger, always there when you dial 911. At least, that's what they believed. February 11th, 2014, 2:45 a.m. Winter hung heavy and silent. By now, the town's nerves had started to fray. 2 unexplained deaths in 1 year will do that. Whispers of a night prowler floated through Clearwater, and folks double-checked their locks at sundown. I listened to these rumors at the grocery store and the diner with a hidden smile. They were afraid of a phantom killer stalking the streets. Not one of them ever thought to fear the voice on the phone meant to save them. The 3rd call came from a 24-hour gas station on the outskirts of town. I often stopped there for coffee on my nights off. I'd struck up friendly chats with the lanky teenager who worked the graveyard shift. His name was Jacob Reed, just 19 and always complaining how eerie the empty station was after midnight. I knew the place had no working security cameras. The owner was too cheap to fix them. I knew Jacob worked alone, vulnerable, waiting. That night, the call blinked on my console and I answered smoothly as ever. Jacob's voice trembled over the line. "Dispatch, this is Jake at the Sinclair station. I think I just saw someone out back by the dumpsters. They looked like they were hiding." I could hear the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights over his head, the tension in his throat. "All right, Jacob," I replied, all professional concern. "Are the doors locked?" "Yeah, I locked up, but should I be calling the cops? I mean, I don't want to bother." "You did the right thing," I assured him. My eyes flicked to the police unit map. The nearest patrol was 10 miles away, cruising the highway. "I'm dispatching an officer now. It'll take a few minutes. In the meantime, can you take a look from a safe spot, maybe peek out a side window, see if the person is still there?" I guess so. There's a window by the stock room that faces the dumpsters." "Stay on the line. Just be quiet," I said, lowering my voice as if we were conspirators. "If anything moves, let me know." I heard Jacob set the phone down on the counter, then the creak of a door as he slipped into the back. In truth, I was already out of my chair, heart hammering in my chest. Not 5 minutes prior, I'd left the station on a break, driving fast to the Sinclair. I parked my car, lights off behind the dumpster, where Jacob had surely glimpsed it. As he crept to the back window, I was waiting just outside the back door. A jingle of keys, he unlocked the heavy metal door, likely intending to poke his head out. The poor kid never got the chance. I struck the moment the door cracked open, a swift, brutal swing of my tire iron to his temple. Jacob collapsed without a sound, crumpling into the icy dirt. I remember the plume of vapor from my breath as I dragged him fully outside. His eyes fluttered, a moan escaping his lips. I dispatched another blow, then another, until the snow around his head turned dark in the dim light. Jacob's phone was still off the hook inside, the call live. I pulled the door shut and hurried to the front of the store, slipping back inside through the main entrance with the spare key I'd copied weeks ago. From the counter, I picked up the receiver to bring it to my ear. My voice was steady as ever as I spoke. "Jacob, are you there? Did you see anyone?" Nothing but silence and a faint ringing in the line. I made a show of calling his name a few more times, then disconnected. To the officer en route, I reported, "Station attendant might have stepped out to investigate. He isn't responding on the phone now." I injected a note of urgency, knowing exactly what they'd find. Before I left the store, I took one more step to muddy the waters. I rifled the cash register till and left it ajar, money scattered on the counter. A robbery gone wrong. That's what it would look like. Not a serial pattern, just an opportunist thief who killed a kid for a handful of dollars. Audio log 00211-2014. Later, I would sit in my basement and listen to Jacob's timid voice and the cold silence that followed. I labeled it the station. His death roused a special sentiment in me, something close to pride, maybe even attachment. I had liked the boy in my own distant way. Ending him felt like writing a sad, beautiful poem and then closing the book. By dawn, Clearwater's fears had exploded into panic. 3 dead in under a year, and now the stories hinted at a masked killer preying on the helpless night owls. The sheriff publicly speculated that Jacob's murder was a burglary turned violent, unrelated to the earlier tragedies. Many believed him, wanted to believe him. But I could see doubt creeping into the eyes of my colleagues. At the dispatch center, I caught our new hire, Dana, watching me with a puzzled frown as news of the station murder crackled over the radio. Dana was fresh out of the academy, shadowing me on nights. She didn't say anything, not then. But I noticed her reviewing the call logs later, replaying Jacob's 911 recording at her console, likely wondering why the call cut off so abruptly. A seed of suspicion had been planted. I felt it in the air like the first prickle of heat before a fire ignites. Still, I was careful. I expressed my shock and sorrow for Jacob in all the right ways. I attended the candlelight vigil, stood among neighbors who clutched their flashlights in each other, fearful of the dark beyond the glow. I even said a few heartfelt words about being the last to speak with him. If any part of me felt remorse, it was drowned out by the intoxicating knowledge that I held them all in the palm of my hand. They looked to me for comfort, and I gave it freely, while hiding the wolfish hunger inside. 3 calls had come and gone. The pattern was taking shape, even if no one fully saw it yet. I certainly did, and I was not finished. January 27, 2015, 1:22 a.m. A blizzard raged this night, wind howling through the pines. I was at my console, Dana seated at the next station over. The glow of our screens painted her face as she sipped coffee to stay alert. We had grown accustomed to working side by side. I played the mentor, and she the attentive trainee. If she harbored any suspicions about me, she hid them behind polite smiles and quiet diligence. But I caught her glancing my way whenever an unusual call came in. That early morning, a call cut through the static. A stranded motorist on County Road 6, out by the old quarry. I answered with Dana listening on her headset in parallel, standard training procedure, though I despised the intrusion. 911. What's your emergency? A man's voice edged with frustration and cold. Truck slid off the road. I'm stuck in a ditch. No injuries, but it's freezing and I can't get it out. The caller was Mark Thompson, I soon learned, driving alone through the storm. I brought up the map. Mark's dot blinked on a deserted stretch of road, no houses for miles. In weather like this, any tow truck or deputy would take at least 40 minutes to reach him. Standard protocol, tell him to stay in his vehicle, run the heater in intervals, and wait for help. But standard protocol wouldn't give me what I craved. All right, Mark, I said evenly. Are you safe where you are? Car still running? Yeah, but I don't know for how long. The engine's making an awful sound. I think I busted something. He was breathing hard, anxious. Beside me, Dana began quietly typing up a dispatch request for a tow and deputy. She gave me a sideways look, expectant that I'd advise him to sit tight. Instead, I leaned toward my mic. Mark, there's a truck stop about a half-mile up the road. I lied seamlessly. If you can walk there, you could get inside, warm up, and call a tow from their phone. In this storm, that might be quicker and safer than waiting in the cold if your engine dies. I felt, rather than saw, Dana stiffen. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. She shot me a sharp glance. I kept my eyes on the screen, avoiding hers. Walk? In this? Mark sounded unsure, the wind's roar punctuating his words. I know it's rough out, but if you're up for it, it might be your best bet, I pressed. Just keep your phone with you. I'll stay on the line while you head that way. The lights of the stop should be visible once you're back on the road. A pause. Dana was now staring openly at me, eyes wide. She knew that stretch of road, most locals did. There was no truck stop, only empty highway and snow. Oh, okay, Mark said finally, teeth chattering audibly. If you think that's best, your call, I said, a friendly lilt. But if it were me, I'd start walking. Hypothermia can set in fast. Dana interjected on the internal line, muted from the caller, her voice hushed but urgent. "Alex," she whispered, "are you sure about—" I silenced her with a quick cutting gesture and unmuted my mic to Mark. "I'm right here with you. Just follow the road north. How's your battery? Keep your phone dry." Mark grunted acknowledgement. Through the open line, I heard him crunching through snow as he exited the truck. The wind was a banshee scream now. I imagined him pulling his coat tight, bowing headfirst into stinging sleet, trudging toward a mirage I had planted in his mind. Dana was pretending to focus on her screen, but I saw her hands trembling on the desk. I could feel the air charged between us. She knew this was wrong. Hell, I knew it was wrong. That was the point. For 10 minutes, I listened to Mark's labored breathing as he slogged onward. I coaxed him periodically, "Doing good, keep going," all while Dana listened in silent distress. She tapped out a message to the deputy. Caller advised to walk, monitor for hypothermia. Her professional way of flagging what I'd done. Then it happened. Mark's voice spiked in alarm. "I see headlights. There's a truck coming." I sat up, pulse quickening. Probably a long-haul semi on that empty stretch, plowing through the drifts. "All right, Mark, just stay to the shoulder," I said, unable to hide the thrill in my voice. Dana covered her mouth, eyes glued to her monitor showing the deputy still miles away. The phone captured a deafening blare of a horn, Mark shouting something unintelligible, and then a ghastly thud, followed by static. I heard Dana suck in a breath, horrified. "Mark? Mark, are you there?" I called, feigning panic as I strained to hear anything over the wind. No response. The line was still open, rustling, perhaps the phone lying in the snow. A new voice came distantly. "Oh God, 911, there's been an accident." It was the truck driver whose rig had just smashed into Mark's stumbling form. Quickly, I switched lines to speak with the panicked trucker, dispatching an ambulance and state trooper to their location. My hands moved automatically, my voice directing resources with cool efficiency, even as my blood roared in my ears from what I just orchestrated. Dana sat stiff and pale. She had removed her headset. Disbelief etched on her face as she realized that I, her mentor, the trusted dispatcher, had sent a man to his death. I ended Mark's call connection. Finally, and in the sudden quiet of the dispatch room, Dana whispered, "Why did you tell him to do that, Alex?" Her tone was not accusatory, but genuinely stricken. I met her eyes with the calmest expression I could muster. His engine was failing. I didn't want him to freeze. I thought there was a shelter nearby. I made a call. It was a mistake. I put a tremor in my voice, a facsimile of remorse. God, I never imagined. She looked down, biting her lip, unsure. We were interrupted by the radio. Units reporting the grim confirmation that Mark Thompson was dead on arrival. The trucker hadn't even seen him until it was too late. We finished the shift in near silence. Dana diligently filed the incident report, her keystrokes hard and precise. I offered to do it, but she refused. Perhaps she didn't trust me to record the details accurately. In her report, I noticed she quoted what I told Mark. "Dispatcher suggested walking to safety, a quiet flag of concern." I knew then that Dana would not let this go. A seed of doubt had sprouted into something more solid. She didn't confront me openly, not yet, but the sheen of admiration in her eyes for her mentor was gone, replaced by wary confusion and fear. Audio logs 127-2015. I saved the full recording of Mark's final walk as The Long Road. Listening back later, I relished my own voice. Calm, almost gentle, nudging him along, right up to the point of impact. The sound of that horn, the impact, it replayed in my dreams with exquisite clarity. But that night, I also dreamed of Dana's face, the betrayal in it, an inconvenient complication, one I would have to watch very closely. September 8th, 2015, 9:50 p.m. The mountains had an eerie stillness that night. A 911 call came from a lone hiker lost in the deep woods near Black Elk Ridge. This one I didn't plan in advance. It was an opportunity fate dropped into my lap. The man, Colin Draper, had wandered off trail at dusk and panicked as darkness fell. I caught the call transfer from State Dispatch, volunteering to handle it since I knew the local terrain. In truth, I knew something else. These woods had perilous cliffs and old mine shafts, and a disoriented man could be led just about anywhere. Dana was off duty. I was alone in the comm center, headset snug as I spoke to the frightened hiker. "Sir, I need you to stay calm. Can you describe your surroundings?" I asked, pulling up the topographic maps on my screen. It's dark. I keep tripping. There's a slope, lots of rocks. I don't know. I think I hear water nearby, Colin panted. He was on speakerphone, probably conserving his flashlight and battery. I quickly pinpointed likely locations. The search and rescue team had been alerted, but they were at least an hour out. Alone in the dispatch room, I felt a familiar dark thrill rising. Here was a man, vulnerable in the wilderness, utterly reliant on my voice to guide him. Another life balanced on the tip of my tongue. All right, Colin, I said softly. I see a stream on the map. If you can find it, follow it downstream. It should lead you towards a ranger station clearing. This was a bold lie. Downstream from his likely position, the creek veered toward Deadman's Drop, a sheer cliff. Downstream? Sure. Okay. He sounded grateful, as if I'd thrown him a lifeline. I listened as he stumbled through underbrush, the crunch of twigs and Colin's heavy breathing filtering through the line. I gently encouraged him now and then. You're doing fine. Keep the water on your left, guiding him like a shepherd to the slaughter. 20 minutes passed. My map showed the terrain growing steep. Colin's breathing turned labored. I could tell he was climbing now, perhaps up the very ledge I intended. I think I see an opening ahead, he said, a note of hope in his voice. Just a bit farther, I murmured, pulse thrumming. In the still of the empty center, I could almost feel the cool mountain air and smell the pine around him. Suddenly, Colin cried out, a burst of static and a terrifying yell that cut off sharply. Then the line went silent except for the distant rush of water. I waited, heart pounding. No response came back. With practiced urgency, I radioed the search team. Dispatch here, I was on the line with the lost hiker. I heard a shout and lost contact near Deadman's Drop. He may have fallen. I'm sending you the GPS coordinates now. My voice betrayed appropriate concern. Nothing more. Later that night, the rescue team reported finding Colin's body at the bottom of a rocky ravine. He had plummeted over 80 feet. They recovered his phone, which still had an open 911 call connected, linked to me. Officially, his death was deemed a tragic accident, a wrong step in the dark. Off the record, murmurs started about the odd coincidence of so many tragedies occurring while I was on the line. I saved Colin's call as the lost one. In it, I was the benevolent guide leading a soul out of the woods, only to let him slip away at the final moment. I listened back to that panicked final cry and felt a peculiar calm wash over me. 5 voices had now trusted me utterly, 5 I had betrayed. Yet I sensed the walls closing in. Dana, I learned, had been quietly sharing her unease with a state investigator, passing along copies of call recordings she'd managed to pull from the system backups. She had become the whispering whistleblower in the dark, shining a light on patterns only she had dared to see. I didn't know how much she had, but I felt her hand in the increased scrutiny from my superiors after Colin's death. They started asking me to recount details of each incident, probing for inconsistencies. I lied smoothly, but suspicion hung in the air like the smell of ozone before a storm. Yet even under mounting suspicion, I couldn't stop. In January 2016, a 6th call came, a terrified boy home alone reporting someone lurking in his yard on a bitter cold night. I coaxed him out with soft assurances that help was waiting just outside. They found him at dawn, lifeless in a snowbank behind his house. Another death in my pattern, and this time the sheriff himself listened to the 911 tape with a grave face. The evidence was tightening, coiling around me. I realized with cold clarity, my little domain of control was under threat. Dana was the threat. The hunter in me considered my next move. One final call to complete the pattern, or perhaps to silence the one voice that could undo me. March 14, 2016, 11:45 p.m. I parked on a quiet, moonlit stretch of road just 2 blocks from Dana's apartment. In the passenger seat lay my old headset and a voice recorder. Tools of my trade turned to darker purpose. I dialed Dana's cell minutes ago from a spoofed number, mimicking the sheriff's private line. The ruse was simple. I told her we had a break in one of the cases and I needed to meet her urgently, off the record. Come alone. I'm parked outside, let's talk in my car, I'd said, disguising my voice just enough. A bold move, but desperation sharpened my instincts. If she fell for it, I'd have her alone outside in minutes. One last call, one last victim, the whistleblower silenced, the pattern complete. Then I could slip away before dawn, vanish into the wide Montana night with my tapes as my only witness. My heart hammered as I watched her front porch. This time I was both caller and killer, no 911 console to shield me. I felt unnervingly exposed, but also exhilarated. A shape emerged from Dana's doorway. She stepped out into the pool of porch light, phone in hand. For a second, she hesitated, as if sensing the danger. Then, ever dutiful, she descended her steps, heading toward where my car idled under a tree. I tightened my grip on the cold handle of the tire iron resting by my leg, the same tool that had ended Jacob's life. My mouth was dry, but I forced a smile as I prepared to greet her, to wave her over and lure her close. Dana approached slowly, her eyes scanning the street. My finger twitched on the recorder. I decided to tape this conversation, an unsaid compulsion to archive even this final act. She was 10 feet from my car when suddenly, "Alex Granger, this is the police. Step out of the vehicle with your hands up." The command rang out from all around. Red and blue lights flashed on, bathing the street in dizzying color. 2 unmarked SUVs had appeared behind me as if from thin air. It was an ambush. I was the one lured out like a rat into a trap. For one suspended moment, I considered making a run for it, or perhaps lunging at Dana to finish what I started. But a glance in the rearview mirror showed multiple guns trained on me. There would be no escape tonight. I killed the engine and slowly pushed the car door open. The night air was bitter cold on my face as I raised my hands. Officers swarmed me. I felt the rough scrape of pavement as they forced me down, the bite of handcuffs cinching hard around my wrists. Dana stood at the curb, a lone, trembling silhouette in the police lights. Her eyes met mine through the thicket of uniforms. There was sorrow in them and steely resolve. The betrayer betrayed, the spider caught in his own web. They found the tire iron and my recorder. They found the flash drives tucked in my glove compartment containing all my secret audio logs, evidence enough to bind me in chains far heavier than these cuffs. As they hauled me to my feet, I caught Dana whisper something to the lead detective. He nodded, and as he walked me past her, he muttered, "We have the tapes. It's over." I could have said a million things in that moment. I could have ranted about why I did it, or pleaded innocence, or cursed Dana for ruining my design. But I said nothing. I simply smiled at her, a slow, chilling smile that made her flinch back. Because in that moment I realized something. I still held one final ounce of control. The truth of why would remain with me. They would never really understand me, even as they pored over my recordings and notes. They would hear my voice guiding those 6 souls to their end, but they wouldn't hear the purpose. That narrative was mine alone. As they read me my rights, my mind drifted to the sounds of those final moments I had curated so carefully. Howard's fearful hello, Rachel's strangled scream, Jacob's silence, Mark's fatal horn, Colin's dying cry, the boy's final sob in the cold, and now perhaps the sound of my own heartbeat, steady as ever, in the back of a police cruiser. In the distance, a siren wailed, one of my sirens responding to yet another cry in the night, but not mine to command anymore. I am Alex Granger, a 911 dispatcher. For years, I was the calm voice in the darkness that people trusted with their lives. And for years, behind that calm, I was the architect of death. They caught me. Maybe you think that means they won. But as I sit here in cold metal cuffs listening to the crackle of police radio, I take comfort in one last thought. Whenever a phone rings in the dead of night and someone like me says, 911, what's your emergency? A tiny seed of doubt will live on in those who remember my story. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, the voice on the other end of the line is not there to save you. In that, I have not completely lost. In that, my voice lives on forever in the back of their minds. You've just heard the chilling confessions of a man trusted with the power to save, who chose instead to destroy. In a town that slept soundly, he was the nightmare on the other end of the line. Some killers use knives. He used a calm voice and a phone line. The dispatcher, when the voice meant to save you becomes the reason you die.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained, and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.